Hello everyone, welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Juliet. So in this video I will be showing you how I recreated this lovely organza overlapping top with puffy sleeves. So here I have a piece of organza that is folded into two using the biggest measurement I'm working with divided by 4. The biggest measurement in this case is the hip measurement, so I divided that by 4 and then I added extra 3 inches to it. This is what I used to fold. And then the length of my top, 24 inches plus 1.5. So the piece here, we're going to mark the back part of the top first. So we're marking the back right now. Here I'm marking half of the shoulder measurement I'm working with, which is 15 divided by 2, making it 7.5. So I mark 7.5 down again to get a straight line, and then I'm marking armhole of 8 inches. I'm using my ruler to connect the lines. So next, at the center front, I'm marking 3 inches inwards, and then on the armhole line I came down by ½ inch, and then I'm going to connect that ½ inch to the 3 inches point to form the shoulder slope. Next up, I'm using my armhole curve to curve the armhole. So next I'm marking the neck width, which is 3.5. I'm using 3.5, and then the neck depth of 1.5 inches. Remember I said this was the back piece. So I'm curving the neckline now. Next up, I'm going to be marking my round measurement. So first I'm marking the bust at this point. So on this line I'm marking quarter of the bust measurement plus 1 inch, and then another 2 inches for seam allowance. Then from the shoulder down I marked where the half length point is. The half length I'm working with here is 16 inches. I marked that, and then on that line I am marking quarter of the half length round plus 1 inch for that, and another 2 inches for seam allowance. Then on this down part I'm marking quarter of the hip measurement plus 1 inch for that, and 2 inches of seam allowance. So using my ruler I'm going to connect all the lines together. So next, on this down part, on that line I came up by 2 inches, and I'm going to curve the down part like so. Then I'm cutting, starting with the shoulder slant, and then the armhole, and then the sides, and then I'm cutting out the neckline. So this is for the back. We're going to place this on another organza piece and cut exactly the same thing. We'll be using one of it to cut out the front. So here is it placed on another organza piece folded into two, and I'm cutting out exactly the same shape. So next I'm marking the dart. This is the back dart. I came down by 9 inches from the shoulder. That is where the dart is going to start, and then it will stop 2 inches before the hip line. So I'm marking the dart, which is 4 inches. That's the nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 plus ½ inch. So I marked it all the way down, and I'm connecting with a ruler. So on this half length, I'm going to come in, mark ½ inch on both sides, and then connect in a slant like so. and that is it for the dart. I'm going to mark the same thing on the opposite side. So 9 inches from the shoulder, and then the half length, and then 2 inches before the hip line. So the hip line is 24 inches, so 2 inches before that should be 22. So I marked 4 inches inwards for the dart, which is the nipple to nipple, like I said. And then that is it for the back piece. So for this piece now, we're going to modify it to get the front. So I'm marking the dart point, which at this point was wrong, but I corrected it later on. So the front dart is supposed to start from 1 inch below your bust line. So I still marked 9 inches here, but I changed it later on. So the front dart is starting 1 inch below the bust point, the bust line. So I marked the same thing on the opposite side before opening it up, and I also notched the center point, very important. I notched the center point on the down part alone. So I'm using my iron to flatten that up. So next up, from the neckline, I placed 1.5 on the neck, and then I marked 7 inches. Remember, we already removed 1.5 for the back neckline. So I'm marking 7 inches on the front, and then on this half length line from the center, you can go out by 4, 5, or 6 inches. I did about 6 inches here. You can do 5, you can do 4, depending on what you want. And then from that half length, from the middle, I go out by 6 inches all the way to the end of the blouse. So after marking that, I'm connecting with the ruler from the half length down, and then from this neck point I will connect to that 7 inches mark we made down to that half length 6 inches we marked, and then I'll be cutting that out. So from the neckline to the 7 inches point at the middle, and then to the half length 6 inches out on the side. So I'll be cutting that out. So this part now is useless. We're going to throw that aside. We'll now place this same part on another piece of organza and cut out the same shape. Now organza doesn't have a right or wrong side, so we're just going to place it anyhow. But if you're using a fabric that has a right or wrong side, you're going to place it such that right sides are facing each other before cutting. So I'm placing the organza piece, and note that it's not folded. The organza piece down is not folded. We need only one extra piece to complete the front part of the blouse. So I'm transferring the notch at the center point to this other piece as well. It's very important you do that. Then I'm trying to make the dark line more obvious so I can transfer it to the other side. So this is how they're going to overlap. This is it for the front. We have 2 pieces for the front and then 1 piece for the back. And then here is the back piece. So because organza has no wrong or right side, you're going to pick one side and make it the wrong side. So I'll go hold the dart on the wrong side of the back piece, and then here on the front piece I'm correcting the dart to start from 1 inch below the bust line and then 2 inches above the hip line. So I'm not marking the ½ inch on both sides because I can just hold it when I'm sewing on the machine, no need to mark every single detail. So here I have sewn all the darts, both front and back, and I've also ironed them in place, and this is what we are having. So right now I'm going to place the front pieces how they should be, overlapping, matching the center notch on both pieces. I will pin them together on the down part. So if you want a particular side where you want your overlapping to be on the right side, you make sure of it at this point. So here's the back piece. I'm going to be marking the round measurements on it. Okay, so the first line we made at the beginning is still showing, so I just emphasized it, and I will adjust. Now that we've sewn the dart, it may not be the same again. So I'm going to check that to be sure that we're still on track before I turn it to the other side and then mark the same thing. But because it's organza, the line is already obvious on the opposite side too, so I just emphasize it by drawing more. So next I'm placing both front and back pieces on top of each other, right sides together. I will first of all pin the shoulders in place, and then I will pin the sides before taking it to the sewing machine to sew the shoulders and the sides. And while pinning the sides, you make sure the center front is sitting exactly on the center back, and you arrange them such that everything is aligned and flat. Also, the dart on this top is completely optional, you don't have to. It's not going to make any difference. So next up we'll be cutting the belt or the tie pieces. So the full length of the organza is 58. So we're going to be cutting 4 inches wide by 58 inches long. I'll be cutting 2 of those pieces. So I'm going to fold it into 2 like so, then close one end and sew the other side, after which I turn it inside out. That's for one belt. I'm going to cut another one for the second belt. Just make a mark at the 4 inches point and tear it out. So next up I'm cutting 2 inches wide strips that I'm going to use to finish the neckline of the top. You can use cotton bias if you want to. I just chose to use the same organza to finish the neckline. So on this side where the overlapping is showing on the wrong side, I'm going to make a mark 1 inch above the half length and 1 inch below the half length. We're going to leave that space open while sewing. So we're going to sew, stop there, and then continue from there to the top. And then on this opposite side, we'll sew it complete. The belt is going to pass through that hole later on, you'll see. So here is it, sewn together, the shoulders and the side seams, and then the hole underneath there where the rope is going to pass. So I've also sewn the rope, I turned it inside out, and I also ironed. Here are the two. So I'm going to place them on the right side at that half length point, leaving about half inch on top before pinning. Pinning the rope on the right side. So next off, I'm going to place the strip, the 2 inches wide strips I cut out, on top of the rope like that on the right side. I'm going to sew it using half inch on the right side and then turn it into the wrong side and then fold it one more time and then top stitch on the wrong side. We're going to do that from this end all the way to the back neckline through to the other end and then finish it up. After that, I'm going to hem the lower parts of the top as well. So here is it all done. I also ironed it to make it flat and neat, and this is what we have. So next up, I'm measuring the armhole. We're going to use that to cut the sleeve, but I realized the armhole was a little too small, smaller than what I wanted, so I adjusted it. I trimmed it a bit. I first of all traced it out, the part where I want to trim off, and then I measured it to be sure that it's now not too big before cutting, because organza can work against you sometimes. So I'm trimming it off. I'm going to measure it one more time all the way around, and this time around I had 8.5, which was perfect for me. So for the sleeve, I am folding my organza into two. I need about 15 inches because my customer didn't want it too big. If you want it just like the one on the thumbnail, you might need about 20 to 25 inches of organza on fold. I used 15 inches here, and then for the length of the sleeve I added extra 6 inches to it. So sleeve of 22 plus extra 6, and marking 28 inches. So 15 inches wide by 28 inches long. I'm cutting that out. Then I will repeat the same thing for the second sleeve. So here are the two sleeve pieces. I'm going to be placing them such that the folded ends are on the same side, placed on top of each other. So after arranging them properly, I'm going to check again to be sure that I still have 28, which is what I need for the length. I need to connect the line straight. So on this open end, I came down by 4 inches and then I made a curve like so. Next, I'm measuring on that curve until I get to that 8.5, which is half of the round armhole I'm working with, and then I'm marking extra 1 inch for seam allowance. So on this side, I'm going to come down by 6 inches like so, and then on that line I will mark half of the bicep measurement I'm working with plus 1 inch for ease. So let's say bicep divided by 2 is 5 inches. I add 1 to that, making it 6. I'll mark it and then mark another 1 inch for allowance. So I'm connecting the lines together, as you can see, and then from that 6 inches point I will connect straight to the length of the sleeve. So I'm covering it out because I don't want any sharp corner. I need to curve that out. So the sleeve is penciled to one level, not tight, not fitted, it's still loose, but the balloon effect is concentrated on the down part. So next I'll be cutting it out. So next I'm going to take both sleeve pieces to the machine and fold the down part enough for an elastic to pass through. So fold 1/4 inch and then fold again 3/4 inch. I have already done that here, and next we're going to be using a safety pin to pass the elastic through. I have an elastic piece here that is 7 inches long. I'm going to pass it through the safety pin and then through the channel that we created. So I'll put it in, and once it covers that point, I will pin it in place so it doesn't go all in, and then continue passing it through till we get to the other side. So once we get to this side, I'm going to pin it down again so it doesn't go back in, using the pins to hold the elastic pieces in place. I will repeat the same thing for the second sleeve, and then I will fold it right sides together and then go sew using the 1 inch allowance I left earlier. So after sewing both sleeves, I used my iron to flatten the seam line a bit, after which I went ahead to pin it to the top, matching side seam to side seam, and then center point to the shoulder point. I went and sewed it around, and that was it. The blouse is ready. It's very simple but very beautiful, and my client loved it. So this is where the rope will pass through, and then you either tie it to the back or bring it all the way to this other side and then tie. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It means a lot to me. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.